I first joined the Highway Patrol, I'd only been on maybe a week, two at the most, when one of the lieutenants from the district office came over and met me, and he said, "Well, Coleman, you're new here. I would like to ride with you for a few hours." And it was either a Friday or Saturday, I can't remember. So we go out and we start riding around. The next thing you know, I come upon a drunk driver and pull the drunk driver over, give the sobriety test, arrest the drunk driver, place the drunk driver in the back seat of the car, and the lieutenant and I were now heading towards the jail. Well, as we're heading towards the jail, and we're on a 4-lane highway, suddenly someone moves from the oncoming traffic and comes over into our lane. And then I slow down, hit the brakes, and then the car veers back over into the other lane. Well, I've got this lieutenant who apparently in my mind knows everything, and I'm thinking I know very little at this point. I'm wondering, can I turn around and pursue someone when I have another prisoner in the back seat? In other words, would that place a liability on that? I'm just not sure. And so I look over at the all-knowing lieutenant, and so I just asked the question. I said, "Lieutenant," I said, "can I turn around and get that other driver while I've got this guy in the back seat?" And I don't know if he knew the answer or not, but he said, "Sure, let's do it." And so I turned around and pulled that one over, and it was another drunk driver. And so on the one night that the lieutenant chooses to drive with me, I'm taking 2 drunk drivers to jail all at the same time. I don't know if he was impressed or not, but it certainly impressed me as the beginning of my career. Well, my name is Richard Coleman, and I'm the pastor at Shepherd Church of the Nazarene in Lexington, South Carolina, and it's great to spend just a few moments with you today. Paul is looking at the church in Thessalonica, and he's talking to them, and he's trying to encourage them to live a Christian life and be the kind of person that God would want them to be. And he was telling them how important it is that God would be able to give us what we needed in order to accomplish His will. I think back to the years that I made traffic stops and all the drunk drivers that I arrested and prosecuted, and all of that was a learning experience. And the detection part, the prosecution part, all of that is something that you kind of learn as you go. And I believe Paul is telling the church how important it is for them to be able to take one step at a time and do everything that they can in order to live for God and be the people that He would have them to be. And we're not going to get it all right to start with. It's something that we have to work at, and we have to count on God and His grace to be able to take us forward each day and each step. And then Paul also tells them, he said, let your faith prompt you to the right thing to do. Be honest with you, if that lieutenant had not been there with me that night, I probably would not have given a second thought about turning around on that car, making that arrest, and taking that second person in. There's times when we need to be prompted to do the right thing and to move forward. And that's what Paul is telling this church. And then he goes on, he tells them, he says, with God's grace, you can live a life that is worth God's calling. And that, I believe, is an encouragement for us today. I think sometimes we feel like, well, you know, I'm not worthy enough to live for God, or maybe even I don't have the time to live for God, or I don't want to go to the effort to live for God. Whatever direction we might go in, Paul is telling them, he said, with God's grace, you can be worthy of living for God. God wants us to be His light that shines on a hill. So when people see our life, and especially during difficult circumstances, how do we react during difficult circumstances? And if we do our very best to react the way that God would want us to, then people can see us and say, you know what, there's something different about them. And whatever it is they have, I want some of that. You see, God wants us to be that light so that others will be able to see Him shine through our lives. Well, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you. May you truly be able to shine like the stars throughout this week. Thanks for taking the time and viewing today.